Borderlands 4 came out of the gate swinging with the best gameplay in the franchise in a new open world format, but it also had to battle optimization issues, a problematic mouthpiece doing damage on social media, and living in the ominous shadow of the Borderlands movie. In the month since, we've seen a huge decline in players, ongoing performance issues, and a Halloween event that could be best described as embarrassingly bad. So how does Gearbox right the ship? How do they pivot? Here's 10 things that I think that they could do right now to improve the game. Starting us off at number 10 is more fast travels around the map, especially at bosses via the Moxie machines. Make all boss icons on the map a travelable spot on the overworld map, and give us more fast travel locations scattered around the overworld. Stop making us drive through empty areas and drive past enemies that we have no interest in fighting to get to the thing that we want to do. This is ultimately one of the downsides to an open world style system. You spend a ridiculous amount of time driving and walking through the emptiness or running past enemies to get to something that you actually really want to do, instead of all this random just mobbing. Now, mobbing is fun and it has a place in the game, and during your playthrough, your normal story playthrough, you are going to fight your way through things, but when you're at end game, you don't want to do that anymore. So just give us some options. At number 9, firmware ripping and storage. Imagine instead of filling your bank with random junk gear just so you'd have firmware for later on, you could instead have a system where you pick up a green shield that has high caliber as the firmware on it, and you press the existing pick up as junk option, but when you sell the item, it automatically stores that firmware in the firmware machines back in your hub areas. So next time you have to slap high caliber on a shield, it's already in the machine and you just put it on your new item. Now you no longer have to log in on your level 30 mule character that may or may not have the right firmware that you need, because oh my god, how do you even keep track of all the firmware that you've stored? Then you have to bank it, and then you have to go back on your main character, pull it out of the bank, find the right piece, go to the thing. It's friction for the sake of friction that doesn't need to be friction. It forces us to play the game in a way that is unnatural and unfun. Sitting in your menu looking in inventory is not a good way to play Borderlands. At number 8, the rifts in the open world. Just make them spawn more often. Now, this seems to have maybe happened with the Halloween event in week 2, but they haven't said anything about it. So I don't know if they're just doing it for the Halloween rifts or if this is going to be an ongoing thing. But another thing that I love about the Halloween event, oh god, that's a sentence I'd really regret saying already, is that on the map, it actually shows you an icon of where the rift has spawned. So you can just pull up your map and be like, aha, there's a rift over here. You just head over there and you fight. That should be an ongoing feature in the game, but I also want to see rifts spawn a lot more often. You have the option to go into them, or you can just dodge them if you don't want to do them. You know what I'm saying? So just give us that option. At number 7, more options for disposing and picking up items. I would love to see an option where you just hold left on your D-pad if you're on controller. I don't know what that would be on PC, but on D-pad, you know, I press down to sell as junk. So it would be nice to have a hold left on the D-pad to pull up an option on your screen that lets you press a button to either sell all items on the ground with a "Are you sure?" prompt, or pull all the loot that's on the ground in a circle around you. This helps with loot falling off the map, especially shiny loot, and you can see how this works in this clip right here where I used a community made mod that pulls loot into you. Basically, I'm looking for more ways to remove issues that keep me from getting the loot that I earned stuck inside of invisible walls, or falling off the map, or falling through floors. These are moments in the game that can lead to high levels of frustration for players, and I'm just looking for a solid solution to that problem. And number 6, I would love to see a revised climb to Ultimate 5. While this might sound more complicated and therefore less likely, I don't think it should be. Basically, right now it's tied to a story mission with unskippable dialogue and terrible modifiers, and everybody and their sister seems to hate this. Instead, just make Ultimate 1 unlock after beating Inceptus, who is a vault boss, then keep the task of finding and killing auger bosses, bunker bosses, drill sites as the side objectives that you have to do before you can start Ultimate 2. Then you unlock Ultimate 2 with the Radix, the vault boss, then Ultimate 3 with Origo, the vault boss, and again you're going to have all your drill sites, bunkers, and all that stuff in between each of these phases. And now for Ultimate 4, you have to beat the Timekeeper and RJ, and then finally for Ultimate 5, you have to beat them all in one run, back to back to back. There, it's already better than the existing version. And I would love to hear from you guys. Post a comment below saying what you guys think would be the right pathing for Ultimate 5 unlock. At number 5, add dedicated drops to other named enemies that respawn throughout the maps, like Wreck and Burrow, Cratchman, Tsunami, Logan, etc. There's a bunch of random named enemies in this game that already respawn every time you go into their area. Just give them a single item that they can drop. There's also some named enemies that you can encounter during side missions that do not respawn. I'm talking about Red Thumb during the Claptrap mission in Fade Fields, Chug and Erector Ed in the Null and Void faction quest, and I'm sure there's a bunch more. Have them respawn, give them a singular dedicated drop. Don't put 3 items in their pool, give them 1 drop and make it a good 10 to 15% dedicated drop rate. Also, if those of you guys watching this video know of other enemies that spawn only during side quests, please list them down in the comments below. I will compile a full list of everybody's answers and send that to Gearbox so they have this information and maybe they can act on it. And number 4, make the weekly Moxie Big Encore be at multiple locations every week. If you're not familiar, once a week Gearbox chooses a new spot where it gets an Iridium toggle to make the boss have double health, double damage, and also an increased chance to drop their loot. What I think would be awesome is if instead of just 1 site every week, we got 1 drill site, 1 auger mine, 1 bunker, 1 normal boss, and 1 vault boss every week. This will encourage more co-op and more chases for shiny and god rolls, but I also think that they should lower the cost from a 100 Iridium to entry down to 25 Iridium to entry, maybe even just 10 Iridium per entry, because right now the Iridium economy in this game is rough. It is very bad. Like, the best way to get Iridium is to just sit and do vile bounties on Ultimate 5 over and over and over, and it's so monotonous and boring. So please, for the love of God, Gearbox, give us a little bit of Iridium back when we kill them. That way there's still at least a little bit of risk reward. If you don't kill them, you've lost the Iridium. If you do kill them, you get some of that back. Coming in at number 3, I would like to see a shiny option added in for heavy ordnance items, but keep the challenge limited to your standard weapons though, because there's 69 of those, and that's nice. For those that don't know, Borderlands 4 introduced a new rare item to chase, weapons with a phosphine skin on them, or as the community has dubbed them, shinies. So obviously think Pokemon, but with weapons. Shiny weapons like Pokemon do not have higher stats, they're just a rare cosmetic variation to give you something to chase. Since you can see your weapons, it makes sense that phosphines are limited to those and not on shields and class mods and even grenades, which you barely even see. But heavy ordnance is seen often for as long as your normal weapon, so having more shiny options for the 8 heavy weapons in the base game would be awesome too. You gotta catch them all. At number 2, end game. To start, a simple fix right now would be for a true difficulty toggle for vault bosses and encore bosses. If you don't know, true difficulty toggle was something that was introduced late in Borderlands 3's lifespan, and it basically turned an enemy into a raid boss. Think about the trials, or the proving grounds as they're commonly referred to in Borderlands 3. The bosses in there were not particularly challenging, but when you turned on the true difficulty toggle, it gave them raid boss level health and damage, and they always dropped some really good loot. But without the true toggle, they were just a pretty basic enemy that you can kill pretty quick. I would love to see that added to every boss that has a Moxie Encore. Just an option where you say true difficulty, and don't even make me pay for it. Just make it an option that I can choose. In addition to that, I'd love to see a raid boss rift that will spawn occasionally. You can have the rift that sparkles with the watching G effect from the side mission. It's a whole phase situation, showing who exactly is testing my worthiness of being called Vault Hunter. If you're worried that random people will stumble into these and be annoyed by the difficulty, there's an easy fix. Lock them to Ultimate 5. I would also love to see a boss rush option in the game, or a rift rush option, maybe a rift rush arena. There's so much that they can do with just making bosses spawn in a certain area and being able to like fight them over and over again. Basically, we need end game. We need stuff to do with our builds that we've pushed to Ultimate 5, and now we're one tapping everything. Give us something to really sink our teeth into. For my honorable mention, I would love to see buffs to underperforming gear. Legendary throwing knives are still outshined by the purple crit knife even after it was nerfed by 70%. There's legendary guns that people look at and just leave on the ground because they're so bad, and then there's rep kits and shields that have have such sad abilities that nobody chases those at all. I'm sure Gearbox has this data. They just need to look at it and take action. Finally, at number 1, dedicated drops are borked. In Borderlands 2, Savage Lee had a 10% chance to drop an Unkempt Herald around level 10. Most other named enemies in Borderlands 2 also had a 10% drop rate, but then enemies like the Warrior, Hyperius, Terramorphous, and others had brokenly bad drop rates because they had too many items in their loot pools. So then Borderlands 3 came along and swung too far in the other direction. Some dedicated drops were as high as 30%, but most still stayed around the 10% drop rate while making farming faster than ever. In Borderlands 2, the world drops, or drops that just happen randomly out in the wild, were insanely rare, to the point that most people would spend hours or days farming loot midgets and Uranus bot just to get random loot. So Borderlands 3 once again overcorrected and made legendary world drops too common. Now you can see legendary loot in a vendor at level 3 or get a world drop Maggie at level 10. In a lot of ways, this took a lot of players out of the game by taking away that feeling of legendary loot feeling special and earned. So how did Borderlands 4 approach dedicated drops? Well, the data miners aren't 100% sure yet, but grinders like myself have done hundreds and thousands of runs of various enemies, and it seems like dedicated drops are as low as 3% drop rate for some items, and some items are as much as 7%. Now for Borderlands 4, I think 7% is actually a pretty sweet spot. It's much faster to farm with the addition of the big Encore machines after all. And if you want to feel for what 7% in Borderlands 4 would look like, see my Axe Maul video. 7.2% of the time across 500 runs of Axe Maul, I got the Buzz Axe. So 36 Buzz Axe drops in 500 runs. That to me is fair. That's reasonable. On the opposite end of this, you have the bod dropping from that same boss at a measly 3%, which works out to be 15 bods in 500 runs. That's 6 hours and 30 minutes of my life spent farming to get just a few of one item. Meanwhile, the world drop rate during those 500 runs was 2.2%, which if you're good with numbers, you'll realize is painfully close to 3%. And while we're at it, can we also add a spot to farm legendary enhancements? Lock those behind Ultimate 5 and above, in my opinion. Maybe lock those to the aforementioned raid boss rifts. So what's your ideas for Gearbox to introduce into Borderlands 4? We need something soon, because right now interest in this game is low, and that's a shame because it's a great game. It just needs some TLC. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit subscribe for more Borderlands content, hit the like button to help with the YouTube algorithm, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.